There are more than 45,000 students in Anchorage. Now imagine there's an emergency.
So what happens next is something that Anchorage School District officials have to plan for, and here's how it looks.
We just started reading.
Mrs. Easlow's third grade class at Mountain View Elementary is tucked in with reading assignments.
See, Miss Edge will help you, okay?
But that's not the lesson today. This is.
Nina, let's go. Go.
Quickly, but don't run.
Keep going. Let's go.
From start to finish, it takes less than 5 minutes for the entire school to evacuate. They'll practice a fire drill like this every month.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
They'll evacuate for fire drills, duck for earthquakes, stay locked in a classroom for safety, and prepare for an intruder.
There's 87 schools, and we have currently already done 287 drills.
And then they'll practice some more. Here's the plan. The Emergency Action Plan. This book has every scenario you can think of that could happen within a school. Everything from an active shooter to a staging area. It also lists the 22 staging schools. On those campuses are connexes with enough food to last 3 days. But what happens if a parent dies during a disaster or can't get to their child?
We will be able to, have that kid in the shelter for at least up to 3 days.
The Anchorage School District says reuniting a child with their parent is the #1 priority.
We would immediately start trying to contact parents, and then we'd keep a log of which students had gone to with which parents.
And until something scary happens,
Every month we do it, so they know it.
they'll keep learning how to be prepared.
Even though every room should have at least 2 exits, early warning is generally the best course of action. So that's enough smoke detectors and CO alarms on enough levels and enough appropriate locations.
All right, Matt, so we're in my room. Let's talk escaping out of here.
Whenever you have a choice of going out your primary or secondary, you should always go out your primary first. But to know whether or not you can go out this door, you need to check the door first. Roll out of bed. You'll come to the door. You're going to want to actually touch the door with the back of your hand. You're going to want to feel the knob specifically because it conducts the heat through. And then feel up and down the door to see if you have heat in the door and or if you have smoke puffing out from around the edges. That'll give you an idea what's on the other side. If you're not finding that, you can slowly, if your body's down, crack the door, peek outside, and decide whether or not your primary exit is available to you. So this is a really great reason to encourage people to keep their primary egresses free from furniture in the way, them screwing the windows closed, them nailing the doors shut, them putting all kinds of boxes and debris in front of their actual egresses. The primary egress is the easiest, it's the fastest, it's going to be the most likely way you go in the event of an emergency when you're disoriented.
Wow.
Secondary egresses are nice, they need to be in place, however, they're secondary. If a child cannot go out the primary egress, they would check their secondary egress. If they are small, you might want to put in a stool or something to that effect that they can get up to the window and see if they can actually open the window. You want to know that in advance. They can try to block any smoke from around the door. If they can't exit, they want to signal to the best of their ability. Throw objects out, such as a teddy bear. They can have a flashlight. They can shine at night. You need to have a plan. Everybody needs to know what the plan is. You need to practice the plan to include where to go. Kids should never hide in the event that they're trapped and are unable to activate the plan themselves. And in the end, activate 911. If you can't do it from the home, that is completely okay. That's why a lot of people will choose a neighbor as a destination because they have phone access. Activate us, let us come and do our job.
And just a warning that many home escape ladders are not necessarily made to go off a balcony, but if you have a second-story window, you can buy one online.
When disaster strikes, staying in touch can be a matter of life or death. Tonight, we continue our look at emergency preparedness by checking out the communication systems that first responders would use to come to your rescue, and the reliability of those cell phones we all depend on so much to get news and crucial information.
Anchorage survived the big one back in '64. But Katrina almost killed New Orleans, and communication systems crashed for weeks. A National Guard study said the communication failures caused undue death and destruction.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
Could that happen here during a disaster?
I go to bed at night believing that I can't envision a disaster, a catastrophe for Anchorage that would cut our first responders off.
Why the confidence? The people who run Anchorage's police and fire radio system say they learned from the mistakes of Katrina and 9/11.
And the way we do that is redundancy, redundancy, redundancy.
There are 12 transmitter sites. The system can keep working if several go down, and all have generators and backup batteries.
In the event that we lost communications with all of our other sites, we have a standalone repeater system right here. This is one of the 6 sites.
But would the next big one knock down these radio towers?
To us, it's inconceivable. The towers are built to what's called a critical infrastructure standard, which is the absolute highest seismic level.
Outside of Anchorage, the state runs a radio system with 84 hardened transmitter sites, also with generator and backup power, and designed to stand up to major earthquakes.
I think we can dig in and help out. I was here for the '64 earthquake, and things have substantially improved since then.
If a site gets knocked out, they can roll in or airlift mobile satellite units to fill the gap. And unlike the communications confusion during 9/11, both the city and state systems are designed so emergency responders can talk directly to each other. Okay, so that's how emergency agencies would keep in touch with each other. What about you and your family? We have all become so dependent on our cell phones, really dependent, and that could be a vulnerability. Just how dependent are we on that forest of cell phone towers? A federal estimate says 52% of Alaskan adults have only a cell phone and no landline phone as a backup to call for help.
If there's a disaster, or everybody's going to pick up their cell phone, and that can overwhelm a network.
The cell phone companies say they are prepared.
Basically, these are our complete cell phone towers, on wheels, easily deployable. They have their own power, their own fuel.
Verizon says its towers all have backup power and standby equipment, and the company has a fleet of generators stationed at Anchorage and Fairbanks to deploy during a disaster. But could you count on being able to make a call or get internet on your cell phone? FEMA says you'll have better luck if you don't try to talk.
Text, no voice calls, having some alternate calls for satellite phones.
And if the power grid goes down and you can't charge that cell phone, how are you going to get news and crucial information? You might want to add a hand crank radio to your disaster kit. No batteries required.
You don't want to wait for the bad things to happen and then go, oh man, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. You want to prepare now.
If you don't, you might find yourself seriously unplugged and out of touch when disaster strikes.
Cars, trucks, campers, and RVs. Alaskans love to get around.
Add in planes, boats, snow machines, and even four-wheelers, and even hiking. This is how Alaska moves, plays, and works. Jackie Purcell joins us with a simple start to averting disaster.
Well, just getting this kind of kit together, a 72-hour disaster kit, is a good way to get motivated to come up with a complete emergency preparedness plan. Watch.
Whether it's a weekend camping trip, a float down a river, or even if you or one of your kids is taking a road trip, it's always a good idea to prepare for problems and plan how to handle worse. I'll be showing you how to put together a 3-day disaster can, something to throw in your car, your camper, your boat, or plane, even your ATV. Now, if you don't have something like this already, listen up. It could make a big difference in your life.
These are the plans for the 72-hour disaster can. So many items. I made them all fit into this can. We'll see the assembly challenge coming up.
You may be asking yourself, is it really that crucial to have emergency food rations at close hand? Well, it is, and here's why. Covering news, we hear about that car that went off the main highway and was stuck for days, a driver who gets lost on a remote and unmaintained roadway, hikers that take a wrong turn and are lost for days, or a damaged boat or plane that has you waiting for rescue on a sandbar or island in a remote area. Planes, vehicles, ATVs, and watercraft. It's a variety of ways to explore the vastness of the state, but that comes with a variety of ways things can take a wrong turn.
I've asked a couple of scouts and their assistant scoutmaster from Troop 230 in Eagle River to help me assemble a few of these disaster cans. I'll also make these plans available on KTUU.com. This is a great opportunity because you know what the motto of the Boy Scouts is.
Be prepared. The disaster can items can be found at local stores. You may even have some of these items on hand at home. A good estimate on the cost of the can and its contents is $25 to $30. The Scouts had their doubts it would all fit in the can.
Next up, tuna can on the bottom.
Tuna.
So it should look like this.
So
Okay.
the tuna goes.
Yep, put it at the bottom. And then we need the Vienna sausage cup.
Applesauce.
Put it. All right, flattened soup, hot chocolate, oatmeal, and stacked together. Yep. All right, so standing upright.
I got mine in there.
All right. So you guys got the tang in the bag here?
Got the tang in the bag.
All right, so somewhere it's gonna, let me see if we can jam this in here.
Yep. So never forget the lifesavers because they save your lives. What was that?
It worked out, guys, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Nice compact can that's ready to go. It's got just enough to get you through a short emergency.
It did all fit, and the project is complete. Shopping took the most time, and with good directions, assembly's pretty quick. Eli and Ben were great. Assistant Scoutmaster Dave Snyder getting in there as well. They'll be able to share their experience with their troop members. I made a couple of new friends, and we're all better prepared.
If or when disaster strikes,
pickled cauliflower is amazing.
There's good reason.
I love canned beets in the middle of winter.
To make sure you know where your next meal will come from.
Everyone knows that in times of disaster, the milk and the water disappear, and the toilet paper, right?
Rachel Miller studies food security.
There are so many ways to preserve your harvest for the whole year. Thinking about the different types of food processing, we have drying for shelf-stable storage, we have canning, fermentation, and freezing.
As co-chair of the Alaska Food Policy Council, she says stock up.
Think about 3 hot meals a day per person for 5 to 7 days.
That's because the biggest hurdle to keep people from going hungry is transportation. Between food banks, grocery stores, schools, and other locations, there is enough food to keep everyone in the state fed for about 1 week. But getting it to where it needs to go is another story. Planes, trains, ships, trucks, they're all vulnerable to disruption.
It is in families' best interest to have an individual household food security plan in times of disaster.
But what's that really mean?
So we're seeing how the emergency preparedness people emergency prepare. Hello. Hey, Jeremy. How's it going? Thank you.
Jeremy Zidek works for the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We stopped by to have a look at his family's emergency food supply.
Well, let me show you.
He stores his in the garage.
It's all breakfast food, so when we have a major disaster, breakfast is what's for dinner.
Beneath that, there's more. An Alaskan must-have.
Pilot bread, it has a really good shelf life.
Freeze-dried food.
It's nutritious and can stay in these packages for a very long time.
Jars and cans.
Things like pickles, Spam, soups.
Some go-to favorites.
One of our family members loves chili, so we have a bunch of chili in here as well.
And what's in the freezer.
Here we have some fresh halibut that we caught this year.
Zidek says a week's supply is good, 2 weeks even better.
It's kind of a good rule of thumb. For every pound of family member that you have, you're going to have 10 calories per day per pound of family member. And that's kind of a rough estimate.
The goal? Make what the state has last longer.
What you're saying is if households are also prepared themselves, then you can stretch that supply.
That's right. The more people that prepare and the more people that are self-sufficient, the longer we'll be able to survive without support from the outside.
So there are a few other tips. If your family won't eat it, don't buy it. Don't forget food for your pets. formula for babies or food for family members with dietary restrictions. Also, think about what you need to prepare your food. Consider a portable stove, and if you can't afford it, have a backup generator. That way you can keep your food frozen and prevent it from thawing if the power does go out. And of course, water for drinking and cooking is also important.